Thank you for joining us for this video from Grow and Give, a modern victory garden project. Grow and Give will help you learn to grow food, share the harvest, and keep it local. The following video is an excerpt from a live webinar on protecting the garden from animals. In this short video, Carol Amira from Boulder County Extension will teach you about protecting your garden from deer.
Deer is a problem in a lot of our communities, especially as they push up and into the foothills. And certainly anybody that lives at elevation is aware of some of the really big herbivores that can attack any of your landscaping. So deer, elk, moose, that type of thing. For the most part, in Colorado, there is really no such thing as a deer-resistant plant. I will be sending out to everybody who participated a link to a fact sheet that talks about the less favored plants, and it's a big list of things. Deer typically browse on smell first, and they do have plants that they like before they'll go to others, but a hungry deer will eat anything. Therefore, you have to protect your plants, and in some cases you can do this with repellents. And in other cases, it's going to require some stronger methods. But that's not the only way that deer can really harm our gardens. Another way is through the rubbing of the antlers from the bucks. So you can see here a comparison of different types of deer damage. You have the feeding on the left-hand side where they're browsing on your lettuce or on the tulips, which they like. But on the right-hand side, here's a photograph of the damage that was strictly from a buck rubbing the antlers and trying to get the velvet off. And it too can completely strip the bark off of our trees. So that's a little harder to manage because that isn't something that's going to be, based in a taste-like repellent, because it's a different type of action that the deer is taking on the tree. It's worth knowing that when we're talking about deer repellents, or repellents even sometimes for squirrels, there are two different modes of action. So there are contact repellents, and these are based on taste or really bad odor as the animal gets right up to it. And so you would apply these on the plants themselves. So this would be those that are based in egg slurries or in capsaicin or hot pepper sauce. Those types of repellents are contact repellents. You could also use an area repellent. So I mentioned that there was an animal deterrent that's based in a combination of black peppers and hot peppers and that sort of thing. It's a dry product that you shake around. That's more of an area repellent because you can smell it when you walk into the area. Or there are repellents that are going to be based in predator urine. So that is a scent that when the animal enters the area, this is going to warn them off for some reason. It's worth saying that the effectiveness of repellents it's based on, whether or not it's on a less favored plant. But the good news in Colorado is that we have an anti-snake oil law. Our anti-snake oil law from the Department of Agriculture means that if you are purchasing a repellent from a brick and mortar store, so you're going over to the local hardware store, garden center or something, and they have on their shelves products that are listed as repellents, before the Colorado Department of Agriculture will approve that product for sale in Colorado, that company has to prove it will do what it claims it will do. So if you're trying some of these repellents that are out there, and there are some effective ones, you can be reasonably assured of some success with it if you're purchasing it at a physical location here in Colorado. So there's a number of visual deterrents that you can employ with trying to move deer out of an area. Deer become settled, they like the places that they've chosen, and so it's really hard to move them off. However, there are things that you can do. Strobe lights do drive you know, animals a little bit nuts like they do, you know, a lot of we humans that see them. So you could have strobe lights that, you know, are flashing, and that will startle the deer off. And if you put them on a motion sensor, it's even better because it'll activate when they come by. The mylar tapes, so long strips of that shiny material that will move in the wind and flash, can startle the deer as well. This is an animal that is prey, and so it responds to startlement by moving off. Scarecrow. And now it's interesting that we have a 4-H project that is devoted to robotics. So if you can connect to a 4-H'er that is working in robotics, maybe you can work together to create a scarecrow that has moving parts. Now, once you do this, I can't be responsible for any kind of nightmares that you have, especially around Halloween, but a scarecrow that has moving parts can be useful. But deer do become used to having both people and animals around them, and they can stand their ground. So the scarecrow is going to be useful for a little bit. Scare eye balloons are another thing. So that's what it sounds like. It's a helium-filled balloon that has the shape of an eye or eyes on it. And as it floats on the air, it can be startling to the deer as well. Those deterrents that are based in noises can be, you know, like the radio on, or radio that's playing a loop of a distress call of an animal. Interestingly, what some of the research has shown is the most successful distress call to frighten deers away is a coyote in distress. Why that frightens the deers, I don't know, the deer. So there are commercial ultrasonic devices. These are emitting sound at a frequency too low for humans to hear, but they are intolerable to deer. They're likely intolerable to some of our four-legged friends who live with us who have really sensitive hearing. One of the better ways to do it, now some of those play on an endless loop and the deer do get used to it. So if you could have one that's on, again, on a motion sensor, that would be better, so that it activates only when the deer come by, so that they're not getting used to that sound in the background. It just switches on and it startles them. You can make these noisy wind chimes, not the mellifluous ones, but the ones that just kind of clank together. And you can make those by, you know, tying a string of tin cans together and put a couple of those out with pie pans so that they, you know, clank. Or you can go with audible sonic blasts, like a sound cannon or something that is an intruder repellent that uses these blasts of sound when the deer come by. So all of these animals will get used to. So they'll get used to strobe lights, mylar tape, scarecrows, the balloons. You've got to keep changing it up, or you could use a whole combination of them. And if you combine all of these visual deterrents with the noisy deterrents, eventually your yard is going to look like this, and probably you're going to get a stern warning from your HOA. But you could try it. I'm going to come back to the one thing that is the most successful, and that has to do with exclusion. So fencing off the deer. Deer, as we know, they leap beautifully, and they can leap pretty tall structures. So if you're going to be putting up a fence, it needs to be about 8 to 10 feet tall. If you're in an area where some of the larger browsing animals are, say elk, you'll need to put up you know, at least a 10-foot tall fence to keep them from being able to leap over it. It should be a pretty sturdy fence of woven wire so that they can't, you know, push through it if it's only 1 or 2 lines. An effective technique is described in one of the fact sheets that I'll be sending out to you, and that has to do with stringing electric fence wire diagonally or at a slant up and along these fences, or to act as the fences, and it will train the animal not to try and come through there. And there are means that you can kind of bait the electric wire with, you know, peanut butter or something, so that when the deer come to nibble at that, they get a little shock to their nose, and it's not something that is, super harmful to them. The voltage is listed out in this fact sheet that you can run. So, it'll just give them a little zap so that they stand back and they learn not to go in that area. You could go with the full-on fencing. However, this is one that I took a photograph of in South Boulder, and it is a great enclosure that is both top and bottom. So they're covering all their bases here, from, squirrels that can climb in from the roof or the deer pushing through from the sides. It's an entire enclosure.
Thank you for joining us for this short video on how to protect your garden from animals. To find more resources from CSU Extension, visit our Extension website at extension.colostate.edu. Here you can search our publications under the Natural Resources category to find more about wildlife. Here you'll find links to Plant Talk articles, which are short and to the point, CSU fact sheets, as well as Master Gardener curriculum. All of these resources are here to help you grow better.